I'd like to call our meeting to order, our June meeting, virtual town hall meeting. Good evening, everyone. As usual, we start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you could either stand or not, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be seated. Thank you very much. Ms. Avery, I'd like to start out with a quick roll call. I may not be able to see everyone. And then also those who are on conference or the public, after we do our roll call for the council, would you please state your name so we can know who's on the call tonight? Miss Avery?
She's getting there.
Okay, I was gonna say, Rick, can you call roll?
Yeah, give her a couple of minutes. She's having PC problems.
I see. If we could, can we start with our public? If you would like to announce your name, I'm asking you to please announce your name and let us know that you're on the call and joining us tonight. I see two conference calls. I can't tell who it is. There's a few people I can't tell who it is. So if you'd like to announce your name, please, other than the council.
Who is phone number 240-867? Wait a minute, 240-286-7079. Who is that?
Okay, great. If you get no response, can you drop them? Can the host drop them? Because some Zoom calls have people come in that shouldn't be in on the line.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that number again?
Yeah, the number is 240-286-7079.
Please state your name.
This is Duty Doyle on Emerson.
Mr. Doyle, thank you. Yeah. All right, great.
Okay.
All right, you can mute again, sir. Thanks so much.
Okay.
And Mr. Gray, if you could see the next number, I can't see. I thought I had my glasses and I don't.
Okay, it's 240-605-0374. Can you please identify yourself? Two 240-605-0374.
That's me, Councilman Johnson.
All right, my man.
All right, great. And then there's the 301-335-3094. Please identify yourself.
Donata Bryan.
All right.
Who was that?
Donata
Bryan.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Donata,
I think
that was Grimes?
Bryant.
Oh, Bryant. Donata Bryan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think we got all the, yeah. Oh, her name just came up.
Okay.
There's something else that says public. I don't know who that is.
That's me.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I see Rick Ray, but it's someone else next to you.
Yeah,
That's you too. Okay.
That's my record.
All right. And it sounds like we have all the council members. Is that Council Member Johnson? Council Member B, are you here? Lane? Council Member Lane, are you back? Council Member White? And Council Member Tuberville. So we have Johnson, White, and Tuberville. All righty, great. So as we begin, we know that this week has been a week of some turmoil. It has been emotional. It has been difficult for some. And before we go into our moment of silence, I'd like to recognize that. It has also been an eye-opening week for all of us. I think whether you are Black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. It's been an eye-opening week. And it provides a lot for us to reflect on. I would like to, though, give an opportunity for our council members to express how this week felt to them in the most effective and polite way possible. But just give you a little time, council members, just to let us know how you're feeling before we go to a moment of silence. I can start with Ms. Tuberville. Take yourself off mute.
Thanks, Tracy. This was a pretty terrible week. It's been a pretty terrible. You know, I suppose that, in my view, it has been heartwarming to see the millions of people come out in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter, finally.
Mm-hmm. Good point, right?
Yeah. It breaks my heart that it takes, you know, the murder of innocent people caught on film. I agree completely with all the folks who have been saying that, you know, it's not that the police are becoming more violent. It's not that things are changing. It's that there are more cameras and now we see what happened.
Yeah.
And I've thought about Michael Brown in St. Louis and what gave rise to Ferguson, and
yes,
how different that might have been if there had been a cell phone video of what happened, right? Like,
right.
So I am, you know, and as like a white person of privilege, I am really trying to dig deep and think about the ways that I can use that more effectively to protect our community members and to reach people who presently just, you know, are deaf to what's happening. Right. So that's a lot of thoughts, but I'll just leave it. I'll leave it at that.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I definitely feel what you are saying, and I appreciate your honesty. That goes a long way, And it's been important for me to know what those who are not Black, how they feel, because we do have some that are not Black that are supporters. So thanks for your honesty.
Your Honor. Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Councilmember Lane is trying to join the meeting and she's having difficulty. If Rick could let her in.
Let her in.
She's not at the waiting room yet. She hasn't signed in yet.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there another council member that would like to express how they're feeling? Take yourself off mute.
I'll go next. it was for me. It was a devastating week um, because every time I looked at um, George Floyd's face, I saw the face of my son because my son looks like him. Um, and I have to honestly say, even before this came about, it was always my concern that him being who he is and looking like he does, I always worried about him. It's still a worry because I don't think it's going to go away just like that. So it's still a concern. It's still a worry for me. I am so glad to see everybody come together. I'm very actually very um, impressed at how our young people have reacted to this. They have really come together and shown solidarity and support of all colors, races, nationalities. The entire world has come together on this, and that is absolutely what we need. Um, and I don't think it didn't hit me until our principal. We had a staff meeting, and she read the last few moments of his life and what he said and how he called for his mother. And I think that was when it became devastating to me. It became very real, and I don't know. It's what my son said to me. Will we ever be safe just because of the color of our skin? And so I that made me think a lot as to what our children are growing up to. I pray, you know, hope that God brings us through this. And it's been an eye-opening experience, and I this is a beginning, and I hope that it keeps going. I do. That's what I have.
Tracy, you were on mute.
That Councilmember B or Councilmember Johnson, did you want to share your view? You have to take yourself off mute. All right. So if there are any staff members that would like to express.
Excuse me. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Oh, yes. And I'm so sorry. With technology, it's not
Yeah.
mine. And I'm
No
having
worries.
issues. So I joined the meeting late, and I heard Councilmember Bennett White expressing her experience and her concerns for her two male sons. So what was the question on the table?
Just to express, this has been a difficult week for all of us. And I'm just allowing the council just to go ahead and express how they feel, what they felt this week, or what they might see our future as being.
Well, I'll be brief. Once this whole once this whole issue, or actually, I'm gonna be honest, the murder occurred on TV. All witness a murder, which is life changing. I've been watching. I've been checking all the different news media outlets, and at first I was saddened, but today I'm more inspired, and actually over the weekend is when I became more inspired, because for the first time I'm the most hopeful that it's not going to be a lot of rhetoric. It's not going to be a lot of political stances where people are going to say what is right, just to get through the moment, and then 6 months from now, nothing has changed because we've seen this over and over. But for the first time, I'm as an immigrant, as a woman of color, as a mother of a son, even though he's biracial, he's considered Black, and also as a daughter too, because as we've seen, there've been women who've been shot senselessly by the police. So as I said, for the first time, I'm extremely hopeful because I don't think I've seen something different. I've seen a movement, and I've seen a movement where we got Republicans now, senators, Trump supporters, who for the first time is actually taking the time and not doing lip service, but actually really trying to propose new bills so that the police departments have got certain restrictions, and they can't do exactly what they do, because what I've heard and what I've learned is that this has been going on, but or the arrest rate and conviction rate for police officers is like less than 5%. That's sad. And so, as I said, I'm hopeful because now I'm seeing the people, the young people, Republicans, Congress, senators now really taking this seriously. And so I hope and I pray that a year from now, we will be celebrating the beginning or the continuation of something that's positive. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Mr. Johnson, or any staff member, if you wanted to chime in. Chief.
Mayor, I'll speak on the incidents. Recently, we during the week of May 25th, we all were. It was all brought to our attention some of the realities that a lot of our communities throughout the country are facing. The reality kind of hit home to a lot of folks on some of the misconduct or the representations that do not truly represent what this badge or the oath that we originally took stands for. I am in huge support of folks who have decided to stand in protest when they see something wrong in their communities, and we certainly stand with them. It is time, though, that we must remember, though, after the dust settles, after the protests have died down, what have we accomplished? What things need to change, and when does the work begin? That is the true question here. So there's a time to be angry and there's a time to get to work. And I'm certainly understand that in the posture that we're in, it's certainly time to get to work as a whole, not just, for what we do in Edmiston, but what we do as a country moving forward to make sure that, we protect the lives of our young brothers and sisters, for that it doesn't happen to anyone else.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Barnes.
Your Honor, it's been an emotional week. When I saw some of the pictures on TV and the police violence, it made me cry, and especially made me cry, of course, when we saw the behavior that happened in Minneapolis. But when I was growing up in Kansas, I never saw black and white. I just saw everybody. My best friends were black, it didn't matter. And so I didn't realize the world the way that it is today and the way that it's seen by so many people. And so I am hopeful. I'm so excited that tonight you're going to consider a resolution that's going to take specific action of what the town of Edmiston is going to do to make a difference in Black lives and everybody's lives for that matter. So it has been an earth-shaking week. It shakes you to the core, and you have hope, and you hope, like Councilmember Lane said, that for the first time, the protest, the positive influence is going to actually result in systematic change in our school system, in our law enforcement, in our all facets of life, so that nobody has to walk the street or be afraid or that they're going to get treated some differently. So it's been a very difficult week.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. So as we move forward on the agenda, I just want to go ahead and take that pause, take that moment of silence so that we can reflect on everything that has occurred. Still, we're dealing with coronavirus and lives are still being lost, even though in Prince George's County, we're doing better. But over in on the West Coast, they're getting it bad now. So there's so much for us to think about and reflect on, and so much for us to be thankful for as we move forward. This week has been devastating, and I'm telling you, I'm gonna say it again, it's been an eye opener. And this may sound weird, but even when Sarah expressed tonight, and I've been talking to Mr. Barnes this week, it hurts because some who are white really feel horrible about this, and it hurts. But I'm glad. Sarah said it clearly, privileged, and sometimes you're privileged. Some people are privileged, and it's just the way of life for them. And I'm just thankful for that honesty, but my heart goes out to those who are not Black as well. So if we could just pause now for a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. So as we've had the agenda, if there are no changes, additions to the agenda, if all agree, please indicate by saying aye.
Your Honor, there's the
Yes,
addition
sir.
of the proclamation. Is that including the proclamation?
Say again, sir.
There is the one change of adding the Juneteenth proclamation.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's not on this one?
I don't believe it was, so I just
On
wanted
the
to make sure.
latest one?
It is on the latest one that went out today, but the one that went out in the packet, it was
Earlier, yes. But everyone, did you receive the new agenda with the proclamation added? Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
We're approving the agenda with the Juneteenth proclamation.
Thank you.
Included, right?
you.
Okay. Aye.
Everyone?
I have a question. What exactly, because I saw that briefly, because I got that last night. What exactly, could you give me some kind of understanding of the Juneteenth proclamation, please? An overview?
It was when the proclamation, Juneteenth is when we realized we were free.
I know what Juneteenth is, but I'm saying,
Oh.
okay, in reference to Edmundston.
We recognize it. We recognize it in June that slaves were free that month, Juneteenth, June. Did you?
I know that, but I'm saying, okay, who proposed this this resolution?
You saw the email from Ms. Tuberville? She responded to all of us.
And that's why I wanted some clarification, because I'm assuming this is a combination of a work session and a meeting. So I'm hoping that we can have a discussion.
Ms. Lane, you have question about the proclamation, Juneteenth proclamation, or was your concern who proposed it?
What exactly are we proposing for the Juneteenth proclamation?
Did you read it?
I read it, but I want to hear from I'm asking you a question.
No, I'm asking you, did you read it, and was there not an understanding of what it said? Because I'm going to read it, and you have the option to vote yay or nay. If there's some discussion, you can have that as well.
That's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for a discussion.
Yes, as usual, whenever we bring a proclamation or anything for vote, you have the opportunity for discussion, and you have the opportunity not to vote for it if you don't agree. I don't think that it's that important who brought it up, but I understand.
I never said
you want to know the meeting.
Important. I never said that. I said I wanted some understanding
of Juneteenth. Okay.
Yes, please.
So when we get to that, I'm trying to see where it is. Actually, dang, I don't have my glasses. Oh, okay. All right. So the next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak? All right, so move. Did I miss someone? Did someone say something?
They need to unmute if they want to talk.
Unmute, please, if you'd like to speak. Public. All right. So our old business, as we move on, is the final consideration of ordinance 2020-OR-05, amending our 1920 annual budget. Mr. Barnes?
Your Honor, this is the final reading on this. It was presented at our last council meeting, and a number of questions were answered at that particular point in time. Each year at this time of the year, fiscal year, we're getting ready to close out the year at June 30. We go back through our budget that was approved and make modifications or changes that need to be as far as between the line items. The good news is you're actually reducing the overall total of the budget from what you approved by almost $200,000. So that's a good thing, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, if there are no questions concerning ordinance 2020-OR-5.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Is that Ms. White?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you.
Rod, I understand that you said we reduced, did you say we reduced it by 200,000?
Correct. We went from 2,084,834 approved budget to amended budget of 1,845,597.
What was the big difference? What was the $200,000 difference?
Part of it was the amount of grants dollars that we brought in for the year. We always estimate that as we work on our grant activity. Part of it was that. Part of it was the savings in the police department as we had salaries. It's in any of the line items that we didn't end up spending the dollars that was estimated in the original budget.
Okay, I'll go over it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a combination of a lot of line items. So
yeah,
I'm happy. I'm happy to go over with them individually if you like sometime.
That's fine. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The next item, new business, is the consideration of the following minutes. First,
Mayor,
Mayor,
you need to vote.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Is there a motion to accept the ordinance 2020-OR-05, amending our FY19 and 20 budget? Is there a motion? Please take yourself off mute.
I so move.
Ms. Tuberville, thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Please take yourself off mute, council members. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank you. The next item is the consideration of approval of the following minutes. First item is the regular council meeting minutes from May 13th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve? Did the council members review the minute?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can we question now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I had a chance to read some of them. Is it possible that we can get the minutes within at least 14 days after the date of our meeting, because they seem to get longer and longer. And so we need more of an opportunity to read them and go over them. Is that a possibility?
Well, Councilmember, we try to get them out as fast as we can get them. We always get them out to you on Friday prior to the Wednesday meeting. So you have 6 days to review them. We can try to add to that as much as possible.
Okay, so is it possible that we can get it within 2 weeks after the meeting is over?
Well, I'm not going to target a specific date because we don't know how things come up with staff assignments and work, but we will make every effort to get them out to you as fast as we can get them.
Thank you. Is there any more questions concerning the minutes? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve the regular council meeting minutes from May 13th.
I move we approve the minutes.
Disinfected. Is there a second? I'm not sure that Mr. Johnson can actually take himself off of mute. There is no second for the minutes. Is there an issue with the minutes?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I second it.
All right.
I tried to speak earlier. I guess I couldn't get through.
Yeah, that's cool. We see you're on. I figured you may have had just a little issue. No problem. So motion was made by, was that Ms. Lane?
No, it was me. Sarah.
Oh, Ms. Turp.
That was Ms. All
right. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All right, the next item is the closed session meeting minutes from May 13th. Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Great. The next item is our the consideration of the resolution of support for Black Lives Matter. Everyone was sent the resolution. We did not receive any comments back. I'll read the resolution for the sake of everyone and, well, for the sake of everyone. We have some residents online as well. The resolution 2020 R-03, Black Lives Matter, a resolution to affirm the town elected officials, staff, and police department's moral obligation and commitment to protect the civil rights of underrepresented minorities in the town of Edmonston. This resolution stands against police brutality, racial profiling, and excessive militarized police force. This commitment includes a mandate to promote and afford fair and equal treatment and services to all municipal residents. Representatives, employees without regard of age, race, color, creed, religion, national origin, ancestry, marital status, sex, sexual orientation, or gender. Whereas due to recent protests resulting from high-profile homicides of Blacks throughout the United States, the town of Edmonston highlights the distrust that may exist across racial and ethnic lines. And whereas we acknowledge that persons of color experience inequalities across many aspects of daily living, including, but not limited to housing, education, employment, and health. Whereas the country's ugly history of state-sanctioned violence against Black people continues to persist despite legislative actions. Whereas despite a constitution that considers all Black equal, profound disparities exist for Blacks and other people of color across the United States. And whereas Black people generally are unfairly targeted and profiled by law enforcement throughout the country at rates beyond what can be reasonably expected. And whereas persons of color are justifiably outraged by this country's devaluation of their life and humanity. Whereas communities such as Edmonston, Maryland, must recognize the need to critically balance the enforcement of law with effective, fair, and transparent police services. Whereas the town has identified racial equity as the strategic priority, focusing on fair and equitable services being delivered to all persons who work or visit Edmonston. And whereas the town recognizes and honors the critical role of our police department in enhancing the safety and quality of life for our community. Whereas it is recognized that communities receive the kind of police services that demand, and as the policymakers representing the town of Edmonston, we continue to commit and provide the most effective, fair, transparent services possible. It is indisputable that all human life is invaluable. Therefore, Black Lives Matter. And now, therefore, be it resolved, the town of Edmonston stands firmly against the form of racial inequality, and our elected officials, police department, and staff holds itself to its oath of faithfully serving without partiality or prejudice, and are committed to take the following actions. A new right to interfere general order, implementing a duty to intervene requirement that compels both sworn and non-sworn agency members to either stop or attempt to stop another employee when force is being inappropriately applied or is no longer required, is unethical, or that violates law or policy. That is, excessive force, theft, fraud, inappropriate language, sexual misconduct, harassment, falsifying documents, inappropriate behavior, etc. Intervention may be verbal or physical. We will support Prince George's County recommendations to implement creative solutions to erase Black inequality in law enforcement and all other areas that affect Black lives. We will research programs that will provide the Edmonston staff with training opportunities that teach cultural awareness. Review the town's policies to ensure that all actions support the town's commitment to protect the civil rights of underrepresented minorities in the town of Edmonston. The creation of the Police Citizens Advisory Committee that will initiate and foster communication and involvement between the citizens of Edmonston and the Edmonston Police Department. Passed by the Edmonston Town Council on this day, June 10th, 2020. At this time, I'll accept a motion to accept the resolution to support Black Lives Matter.
Mayor Gant.
So we can
you
do
hear
the
me?
motion.
I would like to have, I would like to add something to that.
Oh, okay. Mm.
Okay. What I really would like to stress, and what I've been, as I said, I've been watching on different news outlets. What I think we need to include is, because I know we've spent money on investing in body cameras, and I think that takes all of the questions of, you know, my word against your word, because everything is documented. I think that needs to be included, and I also think the consequences for when somebody sees, when an officer witness a clear violation, a human rights violation, and they don't report it, they need to know what the consequence will be, whether termination or disciplinary action. And I think that will make it more, you know, tangible and more, and have more of an effect on the officer. Because yes, it's nice to have this stuff in writing, but if they know that they witnessed something and they didn't do anything to stop it, okay, and they know the consequences, and it's written, and it's, you know, it's understood, then I really feel as though this document is going to have more of an effect. Because we don't want, as I said, we don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over and over, and have the same, you know, rhetoric, and the same, you know, writing the resolutions and whatever. Nothing's going to change until people are held accountable. And if they know the consequence, and that was not included. And also, I think we need to include the body cameras, because, you know, officers, every time, the only reason why we were able to start to affect change for that man, Mr. Floyd, that lost his life, was because it was videotaped. And we are spending money on body cameras, and officers turn it off because it's convenient for them not to have a record. So I think that needs to be included in this resolution.
Ms. Ferguson, I see you. Thank you for your comment, Ms. Lane. I'll come back to you. I'm gonna let Ms. Ferguson speak first.
Thank you. The process of when and how to use the cameras is already in the general orders, and I'm sure the chief can speak to this. And also, those general orders have to comply with an overall process that's been approved at the state level. So how that, and my recollection of the general orders on this is that we are consistent with what the state has required. Obviously, the council could direct the chief to just review it and make sure that it is, but that's my recollection, that they are consistent with the state requirement. And in addition, of course, the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights applies when discipline will be exercised with an officer. And so that is a very specific process that would have to be followed here, and could not be, you could not prejudge something without allowing for that type of hearing process to go forward. So I just wanted to note that, because those two areas are pretty heavily regulated already.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for your input. Chief, would you like to chime in?
Just to piggyback on what Sue Ellen said, you know, these things that we speak of are actually already statute. We actually have a statute already that requires officers to a duty to intervene, and we actually have a criminal statute for failure to act. It just never has really been applied, but that statute passed a couple of years ago. And then this council actually passed an ordinance about the body cams before my arrival, that I know that we have. So there's already policy in place that is in line with the general orders and what the state statute requires us to do. So a lot of the things that we're saying, we already actually have. We just, and a lot of the stuff you all had already put in place before my arrival.
Correct. So, was someone else trying to speak?
Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes. I'm sorry, Ms. Tuberville.
So I wonder if we might be able to, because I agree with Ms. Lane B about the importance of specifying the consequences and disciplinary actions that are on the table for violation of a general order on the right to intervene, as well as for what seems to be a persistent problem with use of the body cameras, for which we already have a general order. That's a pretty good policy. So I wonder if we might include in this resolution something that clarifies that our general orders need to specify the consequences and potential disciplinary actions for failure to adhere, you know, understanding that it has to comport with the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights separately. And I wonder if we could also include maybe a review of the town of that maybe we need to review the body camera policy to ensure that it's, you know, vigorous and robust enough to address what insured addresses. And so we could include here. Oh, and one more thing that if you're saying, Chief, that we've got orders in the books, we've even got a criminal statute on the duty to intervene, but it's a matter of enforcement. Maybe we could also include in this resolution something that really emphasizes the importance of training on these two specific issues.
Yeah, and Chief, before you chime in, thank you, Ms. Tuberville. Thank you, Ms. Lane. Chief, I just want to make mention, if we become that detailed, taking from the Bill of Rights and our policies that are already set in place for our police officers, we are leaving out other individuals. Yes, this is about Black lives that matter, but our police are to protect and serve everyone. So we just did a welcoming resolution for our Latino community. We did not specify so detailed. And of course, there's some differences in treatment, yes, but we did not specify particular actions that we'll take if this is not adhered to. Let's say one of the things was if one of our police officers stop a resident that happens to be Latino, they cannot ask, are you legal or not legal? There was nothing in that resolution that said, if they violate that, then this will happen. And as mayor, I want to ensure that we are consistent. Again, Black lives have not been treated the same, but there are things that are already in place that will discipline those. And you have to have a leader too. You got to understand that a lot of times things are not taken care of because the leader in place is not implementing what is already on the books. We have to hold Chief Harris accountable. If we find out that this has occurred, then we hold him accountable to the policies that are already in place. A lot of times, these chiefs or supervisors have not been held accountable. And that's why some of these things have occurred or have been allowed. What we're doing with this resolution, we're putting it out there that this is how we've been treated, and these are some of the steps that we're taking. There's no possible way we can outline absolutely everything. Chief.
Thanks, Mayor. And I wanted us to just be mindful of when we add, particularly when it comes to law enforcement, when we add discipline, for example, to certain documents and things, we end up pitting ourselves sometimes in what I would consider a trick bag when it comes to our options. Remember, the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights doesn't say that a person can't be terminated or disciplined, but it says there are procedural safeguards that we have to follow in disciplining or any type of review board with law enforcement. So we want to make sure that we're in line with that. And then, as the chief of police, it's important that my review of any discipline is fair and impartial. Because at the end of the day, if I'm involved in disciplinary matters beforehand, then when things come before me for discipline, then under COMAR, I'm not even allowed to change the decision if the decision is something that we don't agree with. So you just have to be careful of the language we use and what we say, and putting ourselves, backing ourselves in the corner.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I've got something to say. As I said, I'm passionate, I'm upset, and as I said, I'm very hopeful. And if we continue to do the same typical soundbites, rhetoric of saying, okay, you know, and the police still not held to a different standard. I understand what you're saying, Chief, and I understand, and I truly agree with Councilmember Tuberville. We have got, okay, I cannot sign off on this because I don't see anything that's different. And that's the problem. After Trevor Martin and after all the countless Black lives that was lost in the hands of the police, and now I've been watching the news all day today, and there are a whole bunch of cases that we didn't hear about. This is not going to solve it. Okay, an officer is going to think twice if he knows, okay, if I see something, because we have this, and Tracy, you're always good about saying the good old boys. And okay, because a lot of times, and I understand, it's kind of like a fraternity, and it is called the Fraternal Order of Police. So it is a fraternity where you might see something, and you know it's wrong, but you know, okay, that's my boy, that's my buddy, so I'm not gonna do something. But that takes away all of that, because if we know, okay, if I see something and I don't do something, okay, buddy, regardless of how much I love you, okay, the law says that I can go on, I can lose my job, I can go on the disciplinary actions. We just need to take it to another level. We cannot do the same song and dance that has been going on for years, or if we really want to have effective change. So
Thank you, Ms. Lane. We're getting ready to call the vote. Thank you for expressing your feelings. This is what Edmonston is doing, and that's how it starts. You have to start somewhere. And I would say, I see you, Ms. White and Ms. Tuberville. I will say, in this town meeting, there has to be respect across the board. My name is Mayor Gant, or Mayor. It's not Tracy. I address everyone by their title. If you'd like to call me Tracy, please ask, okay? And I know we get excited, but please, let's have respect across the board. The chief is the chief. Mr. Barnes is Mr. Barnes, okay? Thank you. Ms. White?
I just wanted to ask a question. Are you, I guess my question would be, are you saying we can't add it or we should not add it?
Add what?
What Councilmember B and Councilmember Tuberville are proposing. Are you saying we cannot add that to this resolution, or we should add it?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all.
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, one thing I am saying is that we sent this ahead of time, and the reason that we send it ahead of time, and it may not have been a week ahead of time, is so you could review it, and if there's some edits, you could let Mr. Barnes know so that we can go ahead and approve the edits and make them. If this is something that you don't want to do tonight, that's fine. If we have some more edits, you can submit the edits to Mr. Barnes at a later date. We will be meeting in July. So if you'd like to put it off to July, it's fine, because we want to have peace. We want to be on one accord. And the chief can only give you his professional view, the same for Mr. Barnes and anyone else who has input, myself or anyone else who has input. So if you have something else you'd like to submit, again, we're going to vote, and you can either vote it down or you can go with it. But I think what we're doing, we are saying that we know that Black Lives Matter, and we are trying to take steps. And we have a chief and and Mr. Barnes who will hold our staff and police department accountable. We have to start with us. It's global. So, I mean, the county has to take care of the county. Our municipality has to take care of our municipality. And again, we can't list everything, but we can figure out how to do this where we all agree. Ms. Tuberville.
I wonder if there might be a happy medium here. I think, my view of this is that the most important component is the creation of a police citizen advisory committee. I think that's a super meaningful thing. And in the municipalities and towns that have that, it's the consistent way for members of the community to raise concerns. It just opens up a line of communication where you don't have to wait for a tragedy for that kind of thing to happen. Sorry, I've got a little one here having trouble with bedtime. So, what I wonder is, we're in this moment, and I don't want us to lose any kind of momentum. And I think passing this tonight would be a really meaningful thing to do. But I wonder if we could sort of suss out some of these questions about, how the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights affects our ability to, impose what discipline we might think is appropriate for violation of a right to intervene and things like that. And Mayor Gann, completely take your point about the importance of leadership. I think, that we didn't have leadership in our department for way too long. I think that's why we ran into a problem with the body cameras. But now we do. So give me 1 second, baby. So I wonder if we might be able to move forward with this and bring up some of these more specific questions in the Police Citizen Advisory Committee, because I feel like it's really complex and complicated, and it's probably not something that we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Tuberville.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Lane.
Okay, I've got a question for the lawyer, because I thought when something was introduced, we were not supposed to vote the same night something was introduced. So I thought that we were going to introduce, and I thought this was a combination of a work session where we have accountable, authentic discussion as to the issues. Hello?
Ms. Lane.
Okay, no, because for a second it went blank. I thought now was the time for us to have a real discussion. If we're going to do something, so I'm posing a question to the attorney. I thought that when something is introduced, we don't vote on it. We don't introduce something and vote on it at the same night. I thought that correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm posing that question to Sue Ellen, the lawyer.
That is generally true for ordinances and for charters.
Well, what is it?
This is a resolution.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, I'll just call for the motion, and we go from there. So it's the consideration of a resolution to support the Black Lives Matter. I'll accept the motion to approve the resolution.
I make a motion that we table this until our meeting in July. It's not like any of this is going to go away.
So,
Ms.
White.
Table, yes.
Thank you, Ms. White. That's great. So just let this motion die, and you can go ahead and do that. You don't want to cut in if someone was going to second.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't hear anybody motion it, so I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay.
So again, I'll accept a motion to approve the resolution to support the Black Lives Matter.
I so move.
Thank you, Ms. Tuberville. Is there a second? Unfortunately, I don't know if Mr. Johnson can get through or not. Mr. Johnson, are you trying to get through? Are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So motion dies for lack of a second. Is that?
He didn't.
That's correct, right. All right. So the resolution to support Black Lives Matter died for lack of a second. So Ms. White, you had another motion.
I just make a motion that we table the consideration of the resolution until our meeting in July, just to get more information, so that if council members have more information or need more information on the resolution, that they would be able at that time to discuss it.
So your motion is to table the resolution until July. Is there a second?
I second.
Second.
All right. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All right. And fantastic. And I'll say again, as we move forward, that if we send information to you ahead of time. It's really great for us to, kind of work out the kinks beforehand. There's nothing wrong with the discussion, and that could have been presented so we could have an earlier meeting, maybe like at 5:30, to have that discussion so we can move this forward, because this is a very important resolution for us all. So we tabled it till July, and that's fine.
Madam Mayor, I've got a
Mhm.
question. So, are we doing away with the work sessions, because that was the time that the mayor and council would have whatever questions answered, authentic debate, dialogue. So we're not getting the opportunity anymore. So that's why
Yes,
we're
you're
gonna
correct.
encounter this in the future, because we need to and
Miss Lane,
according to the
Miss
and according,
Lane,
let me finish,
Miss
please.
Lane,
Let me
you
finish.
know, you
me
are
finish, please.
correct. You are correct. We did not have a work session. And if that is something that any council member would like to have, we can definitely do that. A lot of that was because we don't want to Zoom you crazy with having a lot of meetings because of the pandemic.
Well,
But if it is a request of yourself or any other council member, let's do it. So if you
yeah,
want to have one in July,
yes,
that's fine.
of issues of such importance, yes, we need to have serious dialogue and come to
Oh,
some kind of
sure.
conclusion. Yes.
Sure, thank you. And so since I understand that you have issue with the proclamation of Juneteenth, is there a motion to table that until July as well for discussion?
I make a motion to table that also.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
There was a second, that's White?
Yep.
All right,
Discussion.
thank you, Ms. White. Thank you, Ms. Tuberville, I'm gonna get you. And so, Ms. Tuberville, is there discussion?
Yeah, I just.
Oh, we can see you, Ms. Lane.
Oh, finally.
Mhm.
I just wanted to raise that Juneteenth for this year would be next Friday, next Friday. So we effectively would be missing it in this pretty significant marker of a year if we tabled this until the next council meeting. And I don't know what Ms. Lane B's concerns are. So if there might be a way for us to work through it now, then we would be able to do that right now in this moment and have this day of remembrance next week. It's just a timing concern.
Well, as I said, I need to okay, you proposed it, so you expressed to me what are your thoughts about this Juneteenth, because I have what you sent via email, but I'm just curious as to some kind of discussion or elaboration as to Juneteenth. What is what are you trying to achieve?
So we have a number of holidays throughout the year to honor. I'm sorry, Ms. White. What?
No, I didn't say anything to you.
And I thought that it would be a long overdue thing for us as a community to do. I myself, I'm just trying to to become sort of a better white ally. And it occurs to me that almost every holiday that we celebrate in America is in honor of some white American, whether it be President's Day or, just on and on and on. And so I thought that this would be a nice way for us as a community to have sort of like a day of remembrance of what was a really terrible chapter in this country's history that reverberates now, and that each year we would be able to sort of come up with new things that would be really useful and would be good ways to sort of educate our community members, myself included, about what Juneteenth is and why it is something that we should be celebrating. It should be the top of the list of the things that we celebrate as a country.
I just had a question. So are we gonna, do we need a proclamation to celebrate it, or is that what we need to do to decide to celebrate it? Or I'm just asking. Can we celebrate it without it, or do we need a proclamation to celebrate Juneteenth?
Your Honor, could I answer a question?
You sure can.
The proclamation is simply accomplishing or trying to accomplish what Sarah said. It's just a proclamation being passed by you folks that encourages all of our residents, just like the very last line says, to explore and learn and gain greater understanding of the history and heritage of the Juneteenth celebration following the end of slavery. So it is simply what you normally do when you pass a proclamation is draw attention to a particular issue and try to encourage the residents in your community to enlighten themselves further or to learn more about that particular issue. You do a proclamation for Make a Difference Day. You do a proclamation for Arbor Day. You do various things throughout the year you do proclamations for. And this was one way to do this, to accomplish encouraging folks to go out and research and find out what Juneteenth is all about.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Madam Mayor, as a woman of color, I'm just not comfortable. If we want to really do something authentic and really stop doing the same and excuse me nonsense that we do just to say we're doing something, I think we could do something more effective. Okay, if you want to educate, I'm all for that. But as you said about the different proclamations of Make a Difference Day, you ask the average resident, what day is that? What's the purpose of it? And they don't even know. So I don't want to just say we're doing something by having an proclamation of Juneteenth, and nobody, no young person understands or learns the history of Juneteenth. We've got to do something that's authentic and real. I am, as I said, right now, I'm not gonna be on board with anything that's just gonna continue to do the same thing that has been ineffective. We have got to make real change. And if you want to do Juneteenth, I'm very uncomfortable with the Juneteenth a proclamation, because it's just like it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna pacify the African Americans in the community. No, if we want to educate, let's do something productive. Let's do something that's really going to educate the young people and some of the older people, and also our residents who are Caucasian, Asian, Indian, or different nationalities. But a proclamation, okay, what is that going to do? How is that going to really help and educate and move the Africans in this community forward? I'm tired of the status quo of just doing something just to do something. That's my problem with it. So if we want to sit back and do something really effective, I'm all on board for that.
Thank you, Ms. Lane.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So is there, you had something else, Ms. Tuberville?
Yeah, I completely agree that a proclamation without action is meaningless. I was simply suggesting that proclaiming this as a day of honor and remembrance in our town is a first step to getting there. The same way that designating March as Women's History Month, or February as Black History Month sets down a marker and then can help us sort of make things, push things from that. We may not be the people that are sitting in these chairs next year, but if we've got a proclamation that says that we celebrate Juneteenth, that can prompt the people who are in these chairs to do something. So it was just a step. I'm not suggesting, it is certainly not the end of what we can. It just meant to be a first step.
Thank you, Ms. Tuberville, and I thank you for your initiative for the proclamation. And I think it is an awesome idea. It brings awareness. A lot of times, people don't understand about Juneteenth or other things about Black Americans. We have gone through an awful lot, and thank you for wanting to highlight that. And if we cannot agree, unfortunately, tonight on these proclamations for Black individuals, then we just will have to table it or let it die. So I have a motion on the floor, whereas I think you made a motion, Ms. Tuberville, in support of the proclamation. Where'd you go? Oh,
no, I think actually,
Mayor, the motion on the floor is to table it by Councilmember Lane.
Oh yeah, to table.
Seconded by Councilmember.
Ms. White. White agreed to table. Was it Ms. White?
Yeah, she seconded.
Who made the motion? Miss Lane.
Lane. Motion.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So as we move forward, and I just want to express my disappointment in not being able to agree on the Black Lives Matter or Juneteenth, which will be celebrated on June 19th. It was the day that slaves accepted or recognized that they were free. And whereas we didn't celebrate it or highlight it in years past, I thought it was really appropriate this year to highlight it. And it was presented to us by Sarah Tuberville, who is one of our white council members. So I greatly appreciate your initiative, Ms. Tuberville, but it doesn't mean that it's going to die. We're going to talk about it in July, as well as our Black Lives Matter support proclamation resolution. So the next item on the agenda is the consideration of appointment of Marie Jackson to replace Frida Parks, who cannot serve as an election judge on the Board of Elections as an election judge for Ward 1, and the appointment of Byron Hope, Ward 1, as an alternate election judge. Are there any questions concerning this?
You said Byron was an alternate?
An alternate, yes, he is, Mr. Johnson.
I thought he was a judge. Wasn't he a judge
last year? He was a judge last year, but he's an alternate in case someone else cannot fulfill their obligation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's an alternate, so we can be prepared.
Okay, I have one question. So he represents Ward 1, which means he would only be able to fill in for a Ward 1 election clerk. So should we have a Ward 2 alternate just in case?
Well, right now, Ward 2, he can do Ward 2 as well, right, Mr. Barnes? Yes. He's the alternate for Ward 1.
He could, right. You have to have one representative from each ward, and then the overall overseer of the election board is from either ward. So you have a Ward 2 person designated. If you pass this, you're designating Ms. Jackson as Ward 2, and you have a judge designated now. I mean, Ward 1. You have a judge right now, Ms. Audrey Pabs Gannon. If she cannot, for some reason, then Byron would be eligible to take that role.
Okay.
So Byron is, I'm sorry, excuse me, Madam Mayor. So Byron is actually taking the place of Ms. Pabs, is her name? I'm sorry.
No. Miss Marie Jackson is taking the place of Frida Parks.
I got that.
and everyone else is available thus far.
Okay,
Byron is the alternate for either one of the wards.
okay.
Okay, thank you. So is there a motion to accept the appointment of Marie Jackson to replace Frida Parks, who cannot do it, and also accept the appointment of Byron Hope as an alternate? Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I would like to, once again, I feel as though that's something should have been brought before the council. I agree, but we need to do better.
So why don't Miss Lane, let's vote. You can either vote or not, and then you can comment after.
No,
The motion on the floor is
no.
the motion on the floor. Miss Lane,
I will comment before I make
Miss
a vote.
Lane, please mute. I have a motion on the floor. Thank you. The motion on the floor is to appoint Marie Jackson to replace Frida Parks, and also to allow Mr. Hope to be the alternate. Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Ferguson.
Okay, so you're just waiting for the motion and then you're going to allow conversation after. Okay, I'm sorry. My
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. White. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All in favor, please indicate by saying
Aye.
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 Thank you. Now, Ms. Lane, you have comment. Take yourself off of mute.
I'm doing that. Give me a chance, please. I refuse to have a discussion after after I voted. So as I said, I will discuss before I vote. So therefore, there's no discussion on my part. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
So I have a question.
Right.
I have a question for Sue Ellen.
Yes.
So it's my understanding we make a motion, and then before we vote, we have a discussion.
Generally, that's the way that goes. Actually,
is that the way it goes? Because that's not what we did.
I know. That's why I was asking that question.
We haven't done that. I tried to have that happen. You made the motion.
Yep.
And we went through and passed it. Ms. Lane tried to have the discussion ahead of time. The motion was already on the floor. She refused to have a discussion after the motion. This has happened before, and I want to move forward. If there's discussion afterwards, give me a call.
Please answer the phone.
The next item is the consideration of award of bid for the construction of rain gardens and permeable curb and gutter on Ingraham Street to the low bidder, E&R Services, in the amount of $90,472. Prince George's County Stormwater Stewardship Award Program, Chesapeake Bay Trust Grant in the amount of $100,069,530. Is there a motion to approve? All of the backup is in your packet with the bids. Hopefully everyone had the opportunity to review. Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion we approve.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry. Was that Ms. White?
Tuberville.
Oh, Tuberville. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Again, there's no.
Aye.
Aye.
The next item is the consideration to move the July Town Council regular meeting to from July 8th to July 15th due to the upcoming elections. Is there a motion to approve?
That's a move.
Is there a second?
I have a question.
Second.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chief, you have the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Going forward, we recently set up a new system to be able to post our statistics online for better transparency. We're working that out now. Of course, you guys remember last month, Sergeant Young was taking over code. Going forward, I'm proud to announce that we will be hosting a virtual town hall on June 27th at 6 p.m. The virtual town hall will talk about some of the issues that we just highlighted. We'll talk about police misconduct. We'll give a COVID-19 update from a public safety standpoint, and it would allow our residents not only to chime in, but they can submit questions in advance if they choose to. That flyer will be coming out as early as tomorrow. Recently, with the events surrounding the death of Mr. Floyd, I released a press release on our department's position on what had taken place, and we got a lot of traction on it. I'm glad to say that. I recently had an interview with WTOP about that press release and some of the policies that the council, mayor, and the police department are working on, some initiatives moving forward. I would say that going forward, Edmiston has the ability to really lead when we see all the things that we've seen throughout the country. And I say that because we're such a diverse community and we have so many different walks of life that represent us. We really have the ability to take a hold of what we see going around the country and show how things are supposed to be in our police departments and how things are supposed to be when it comes to community engagement. And I look forward to working with each of you on it. I've talked to Sarah a couple of times throughout the week about some initiatives, but I would love to hear from the entire council if we want to work on something, if there's other things that you all see that we can do to make a positive impact. Now, I will tell you that if there is something that we do that is not impactful, I'm not inclined to really focus on it, but I want to make sure that we're doing things that can impact our community on a daily basis. So if you have any questions, please give me a call. I'm always available through email or phone, and we'll move forward. If anybody has any questions, I'll take questions.
I'm sorry, I had a question, Chief.
Uh-huh.
I understand, well, a citizen stopped me in the grocery store to tell me that cars had been vandalized. And I think it was last week. I'm not really sure. But can you update us on that? Because she just told me that there had been some some cars had been vandalized. I think in my neighborhood here on Hamilton Street. So can you update me on that or let me know?
I certainly can. When I did receive a phone call about potential vandalism on a vehicle.
Yeah.
On that block, I was told originally that there were several. I mean, there were other cars that were vandalized, but there is no report calls. There's no calls from the county police or even our system to show that anyone called 911 about the vandalism. Now, there was one with one resident that was dealt with, but that was more. It's labeled as vandalism, but it was silly string placed on the car, and that was handled. But I don't have any documentation of any other vandalisms that were taking place. And I get a report every morning of every time a person calls 911, and I've actually called the dispatchers to hear the call for service, to hear what was said on the call for service, and that is not there. So if people are having issues, I encourage them to follow protocol because it makes it a lot easier to kind of manage to see what we're going on. But there's no stats or anything to show that actually happened. So if you guys see something or have something, just give me a call and I'll certainly look into it.
Okay. And I had a question on the house on Hamilton Street that's supposed to be, torn down. And the gentleman hasn't been there for a while. I mean, I hope he's okay. He normally does come and cut the grass and at least keep the grass cut and that type of thing. But he hasn't done that for a while. Someone, and the reason I'm asking is because someone who is not a part of Edmiston, I think he came through, he saw the house and he wanted to know if, I guess, the house was for sale. He has a company that's what they do. They tear down and rebuild or whatever it is you do. So he wanted to know if that's a possibility for that home. Is he possibly thinking about selling it, or what? And I know we've talked about, the demolition of it, and we don't seem to get updates on it too regularly. But is that a possibility that maybe he may sell it and somebody can buy it and take
Mr.
it
Barnes,
down
do you
to
have an
something
update?
that's up there?
Right. We've given a number of updates. Actually, I think we've almost given them every month since this process started.
We
You
have.
did approve a demolition, and it's been going through that process. The water service has been removed. The gas meter has been reserved. I received the plans this week to remove the electric. Mr. Music lives in Pennsylvania. I had conversation with him early last week. He plans to be here this week to take care of mowing the grass. He owns 2 homes adjacent to each other.
Right.
He does not have any plans or any idea on what he wants to do with the property.
Okay.
He, once we've leveled it, we have the contractor ready to go once I apply for the permit from the county, and it is leveled. So right now he knows he's got to work on the grass. He comes down, he stays in the ranch home that's adjacent to it. He takes care of that, and he's kept me up to date all along the process. Like I said, I received the plans from Pepco to this week indicating the electric was being disconnected from the house. Once that's done, we apply to Prince George's County for the demolition permit. Once they approve it, then the contractor's ready to go.
So once the house is demolished, he is the owner of the land. Somebody could buy that I guess that space to build another house on there if that's what they would think about doing. Would they contact him for that?
He's in total control. I've given a number of potential developers, a number of businesses. One that contacts Town Hall, I give him his information for contact. As I've discussed with Mr. Music, he doesn't know at this time what he plans to do with it. He may subdivide it and try to create additional lots and additional opportunity to sell the property, but he doesn't know.
So if someone is interested, I'm asking you, if someone is interested in it, do they call you? Just to
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Okay.
Yeah, they contact Town Hall and we will be able to get them in touch. Absolutely, do it all the time.
Okay.
Now, as for the
Thank you,
code,
Mr. Barnes.
sorry, Mayor.
No problem. Go ahead.
As for the code violations identified, we've already issued a notice and citations on the property for grass and those things, and we'll continue to do follow up. But we're aware of it, and I know Rod was working on the property and gave me updates on the property prior to my arrival.
Okay. I was just concerned that maybe there was something wrong with him, because he's very good about coming and cutting the grass and keeping for both properties. He's normally pretty good about that. I just was hoping there wasn't anything wrong with him, or he hadn't, nothing had happened to him. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes, for your consistent update on that issue, as well as Chief, thank you for being on it as far as code enforcement, because we have been talking about it for a while, a long while.
Yeah.
Mr. Barnes.
Just a couple of items, Your Honor. We have a new food distribution that's going to happen at Town Hall on Saturday. The Victory Center is going to be there on Saturday handing out food to residents in the region and area. They approached us via Mayor James' suggestion at Bladensburg, and we appreciate that effort to do that. We're sending out notice, sending out social media, so anyone can stop by Town Hall on Saturday, and they'll have church members will be there distributing the food and providing that. Second thing, we are having our recognition of young people that have graduated from high school, college, that are moving from middle school to from middle school to high school, elementary to middle school on the 19th from 3 to 7. And all of you have indicated, I believe, that you're going to participate in that caravan as we go to each home of the young folks that are celebrating that event and honor them for their efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Any questions for Mr. Barnes? If there are no questions.
Actually, I do have a question for what exactly is the status with code enforcement? Because I heard that Sergeant Young was supposed to be handling code enforcement, but is there an end date as to when we're gonna find out the results of the investigation? So that because a lot of residents are expressing to me different concerns, calling me. Why is that so funny, Madam Mayor?
Ms. Lane, stay in your professional lane. You
No,
had a question.
no, I'm asking you a question. Exactly.
Ms. Lane, you
Why
had
are
a
you
question? Ms.
Why are you
Lane,
laughing? No, I'm serious. What are you? I'm saying residents. If you think that's
I
funny,
will
if you think that
continue.
residents are asking me questions, if you think that's funny, then then yeah, then one of us has to be professional, and I'm not the one laughing. Anyway, so I'm just concerned as to the status of the code enforcement and also the status of Robies, because I was told by a resident that you told them that they are in compliance. So is that true?
So there's a couple of things here. We talk about Robies. Robies. I never told a resident that they were in compliance. What I told them was they were in compliance.
The mayor did. The mayor did.
So they are in the posture. They filed for the permits. They've had their inspections. We're just waiting on the final process through the county. So they've received notice. They're jumping on it, from my understanding.
And that's what I told whoever you're talking about.
And the other thing was the code enforcement. Remember that any investigation that's being dealt with is a personnel matter, and that investigation does not hinder our ability to enforce code in the police department. Sergeant Young is handling code, but code is the responsibility of all my staff or whoever I assign it to, and all of them have been out there enforcing code. I'm getting daily reports on code, and I've encouraged any resident or council members, if you have issues with code or things you want me to look into, certainly contact me. Mr. Johnson has contacted me, called me about different code all the time. If he sees something that he wants me to look up, because there's certain things we have to actually look up, we're certainly doing it. Some of the things that are being reported aren't violations, and on the DPI and stuff like that. So, if you're replacing a fence, for example, in the backyard, people were complaining about that type of stuff. That's not a violation. So there's certain things we can look up, there's certain things we can look into, but it's certainly being handled. If you have any concerns, I encourage people to definitely email me, and we've tasked different assignments to different officers, and from my understanding, they're doing pretty well from the reports that I'm getting. As it comes to code, we're in a posture that unfortunately I can't really speak on until we move into another area with our current code enforcement officer, who is just out right now. But if we want to talk in a closed session or offline about it, we certainly can.
Thank you, Chief. And you know that I've always reached out to you, and thank God you've always been very receptive to my concerns and my emails, texts, or personal conversations. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other comments or questions for the chief or town administrator? If not, if we don't have any, if there's nothing else for the, yes, ma'am.
I just had a question for the chief. There's been some talk about removing police officers from our schools. What is your take on that, Chief? What do you think about that?
Good question.
But actually, I was actually just reading another article about the proposal from Board Member Murray about that. So here's the thing: our communities are already over-policed. All right, our communities are already, particularly communities with minorities, are extremely over-policed. This is why most of the minorities are in jails in the United States now. But I'm not necessarily, I don't believe in over-enforcement, but I'm not necessarily in support of removing the officers. I'm in support of us reallocating their purpose in the schools. So right now, the perception for me as a resident in Prince George's County is that it is reactive to potential shooters and things like that, and that's what they say. But if we make it into a proactive stance, like they should be teaching DARE or something, or they should be involved in guidance counseling with the kids. It could be a really great bridge and building relationships with our students. But I think we need to reallocate what we use those police officers for, and not necessarily just enforcement, because I don't think that's what they should be there for. But it's causing a lot of conversation throughout the county. If you guys have noticed, I've seen articles on all the major networks, and a lot of people have different opinions about it. But I don't think I'm necessarily for them leaving altogether. I just think we need to reallocate what they do there.
Okay, so and the reason why I'm asking is because, you know, and I guess I have to use Bladensburg High School as a example. They have resource officers, and then they have police too. So what's and I guess because they're talking about removing, you know, the police from the school, would that mean they would remove resource officers as well as uniformed police officers? Because I think at Bladensburg they probably have both. Like our school has a resource officer, and like if we have an issue, then we call him. He's not necessarily on staff at our school. If there's a problem, then, you know, we call and he comes. But I know they're actually in high schools, they're actually on staff in the schools. But that I know that they also have police officers that come into the schools also. So I guess my question is the difference between the resource officer and the actual police officer. I would say the resource officers are absolutely needed for the school system. There needs to be probably a lot more training as to what it is, because I think a lot of the problem too is there's so many things they can't do, like they're not allowed to do. And maybe if, you know, there was some type of training, even to let parents know what they're allowed to do and what they're not to do, because sometimes we're confused as to what it is also.
So I think what has happened over the course, you have some jurisdictions that call it a resource officer, and some jurisdictions just say this is assigned officer. Like, for example, the county, it's called a resource officer, but they're there as just a regular police officer.
Okay.
But at the sheriff's office, for example, we have resource officers who are assigned, which a lot of people don't know, assigned to middle schools.
Yes.
So throughout the county. So, but their program there is not to be necessarily reactive to crime. Their job, they're actually having a cadet program there. They're teaching classes. They're involved in certain things with the school, and they actually have a curriculum that they're required to be involved in. So I think that a lot of jurisdictions have changed the title as resource officer, but it's really not resource. It's actually just police officers in the school. We need to redefine the narrative of what they need to be doing in the schools. I think they should be there. We just got to redefine what they're actually doing, because I don't want officers there just to be, you know, policing the school. I want officers there to be involved in what's going on in the school, and then it bridges the relationship long term. And then if something does happen, they can still act if they needed to. But to remove them altogether, I think it's probably just way too soon. I think it's just a overreaction with everything going on.
Okay, so your virtual town hall meeting, is that just for the residents of Edmonston?
So I'm going to encourage the residents, of course, because that's who I want to hear from. But I'm going to put it out there. We are going to have, I believe, 1 or 2 special guests. We're just waiting to hear back from one of the delegates to see if they're going to come on, because we want to hear. I want to hear them speak on some of the legislation they want us to look into. Some of the stuff on the national level that the House is working on. I wanted to get some take on that. We're still working out those actual guests, but we're going to talk about the recent protests. We're going to talk about that video in Minneapolis, the COVID-19 pandemic, and where we are in our current posture. We're going to talk about what we're doing as an initiative, anything that we're doing that's proactive in policing, or what, and really to hear from them. So I want to get questions from our residents and stuff. I'm going to tell them to email. Our email address is thepoliceinfo@edmonstonmd.gov. That's where they can email their questions. But we're going to post it not only on the virtual Zoom, but we're actually going to have it on Facebook Live too, so people can chime in and send questions as we're talking.
Okay, so that's on the 27th, on a Saturday?
I believe it's on a Wednesday. Don't quote me,
27th of June?
I don't have it in front of me. Hold on, I don't have it in front of me. The 24th, excuse me, 24th.
Okay.
Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Mr. Johnson, I don't know if you wanted to chime in on your feelings about this past week.
Well, the only thing that concerned me is the way Mr. Floyd died. But that's the ongoing thing that's been going on, I mean, for years. I remember when I first moved out in PG County, when I was a little boy, I used to, we used to get harassed like that when, when I was coming up. I mean, you would have your blacks that got harassed more than whites, and even though everybody's out there, but that's who the police came to. But I feel a change is coming, but I'm just mad that it took this man's death to really bring everybody out. I mean, a lot of people really see what's going on now, and so maybe things will change. Hopefully, it will change.
Yes, indeed, indeed. From McDonald's to the courtroom, I hope things will change.
Yeah.
So at this time, I'll accept a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Oh, before we go, I just got one question. How come we don't just meet at the town hall for the town hall meeting?
At this time, the governor has not lifted the emergency shutdown, and neither has the county executive. So we are still closed to the public, and that's why we're still Zooming.
We can be closed to the public, and they can watch it on TV, but we can still hold the meetings at town hall. I mean, what's the difference with us having a meeting or staff having a meeting?
Right. I think it might be a little difficult to distance 6 feet apart with all of us. And we have to abide by the county rules.
Yeah, okay.
I think maybe by July, we might be okay. We might be okay next month. It's according to what our county executive says on the 15th of June.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's the 15th of June. We might be okay in July, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious about that. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Uh-oh. Who second? Was that Ms. Lane?
Yeah, I have a Miss Lane
Okay.
over Shovelville. Doesn't matter.
I think it was a tie.
Do it again. Is there
I
a second? Okay, thanks, Ms. Lane. All righty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending our meeting tonight. We will talk to you or see everyone hopefully in July. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.